Deep in the shadows of the Zarko's prison ship, the alien council was about to start a deadly experiment. They wanted to see if humans were truly as weak as they looked. They unleashed the Gorthak, a 10-foot-tall beast made of obsidian scales and pure rage. It hadn't been fed for days, and its target was clear. Every step it took made the floor vibrate. It was heading toward room 402, smelling the blood of its next victim. Inside the room, Leo and his small ginger cat, Oliver, were completely unaware that the galaxy's most feared predator was right outside their door. The door hissed open. The death beast entered, its jagged teeth bared, ready to tear everything in the room to pieces. It let out a growl that shook the floor, but then, suddenly, it stopped. The monster wasn't looking at the human. It was looking at the cat. The metal walls of the galactic prison ship Zarkos were cold and gray. High above the prison floor, in a protected glass room, the alien council gathered. They were tall creatures with 4 eyes and pale blue skin. They did not feel pity. They did not feel love. Today, they only felt curiosity. They wanted to test a theory. They believed that humans were the weakest species in the galaxy. To prove this, they had brought a human prisoner named Leo to their ship. But Leo was not alone. He had been allowed to keep his small pet, a 10-pound domestic ginger cat named Oliver. In a dark, heavy chamber at the end of the hallway, something moved. It was the Gorthak. The Gorthak was known across 1,000 planets as the Death Beast. It stood 10 feet tall, covered in thick, black scales that were harder than steel. Its claws were long and sharp like kitchen knives, designed to tear through metal doors. The beast had not been fed for 3 days. It was hungry, angry, and ready to kill anything in its path. The alien council watched through their high-tech cameras, leaning forward in their seats. They whispered to each other, placing bets on how many seconds the human would survive. The commander of the council pressed a glowing red button. Deep, heavy chains inside the Gorthak's chamber fell to the floor with a loud clank. The massive door slid open. The beast let out a roar that echoed through the entire ship, making the pipes rattle. It stepped into the hallway, its heavy breathing sounding like a broken engine. Its yellow eyes glowed in the dark as it smelled the air. It caught the scent of a living creature down the hall. With a slow, predatory walk, the death beast began to move toward room 402, the room where the human was kept. Inside room 402, the atmosphere was completely different. It was quiet and peaceful. Leo, the human, was lying on a simple bed, fast asleep. He had spent the whole day working in the ship's mines and was exhausted. Next to his feet, curled into a perfect orange ball, was Oliver. Oliver was a simple house cat with bright ginger fur and a white patch on his chest. To the aliens, Oliver looked like a useless, tiny creature. He had no armor, no big teeth, and no powers. He was currently busy licking his right paw, cleaning himself with great focus. He seemed completely unaware that a monster was coming for them. The Gorthak reached the door of room 402. It stopped and sniffed the gap under the door. It could smell the warmth of the human and the strange, muskier scent of the cat. The aliens in the control room were laughing now. The human doesn't even know he is about to die, one scientist said, his 4 eyes blinking in excitement. And that small orange creature will be nothing more than a snack. They watched the monitors closely. They wanted to see the fear in the human's eyes when the door opened. The automatic lock on the door turned green. With a soft hiss, the heavy metal door slid into the wall. The Gorthak stepped into the room. Its massive body took up almost half the space. Its head nearly touched the ceiling. It looked down at the bed where the human lay sleeping. The beast opened its mouth, revealing rows of jagged, blood-stained teeth. It raised a massive claw, ready to strike. The aliens held their breath, waiting for the scream. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the low growl starting in the Gorthak's throat, but then, Oliver stopped licking his paw. The small ginger cat slowly raised his head. He looked up at the 10-foot monster with his big, calm green eyes. He didn't run under the bed. He didn't hiss. He just looked at the Gorthak as if the beast was nothing more than an uninvited guest. The Gorthak's growl died away. The beast's yellow eyes met the cat's green eyes. A strange vibration filled the air. The Gorthak's claw, which was inches away from Leo's chest, began to shake. Suddenly, the death beast stopped dead in its tracks. Its muscles, which were tight and ready for a kill, went completely soft. The terrifying predator took a small step back. Its tail, which usually smashed everything in its way, tucked between its legs. In the control room, the laughter stopped instantly. The alien stood up, staring at the screen in total confusion. "What is happening?" the commander shouted. "Why isn't it attacking?" The Gorthak, the most feared creature in the galaxy, was looking at the tiny ginger cat with something that looked exactly like pure terror. The control room of the Zarkos was silent. The alien council members, who were usually loud and arrogant, were now frozen in shock. On the giant main screen, the scene looked impossible. The Gorthak, a creature that could crush a tank with its bare hands, was trembling. Its massive, scaly chest was heaving up and down, but not with rage, it was breathing with fear. The aliens checked their sensors and computers, thinking there must be a gas leak or a technical error. But the readings were clear. The Gorthak's heart rate was at an all-time high. It was in a flight or fight mode, and for the first time in its violent life, it wanted to fly away. Down in the room, Oliver the ginger cat was no longer sitting still. With a slow, graceful movement, he jumped off the edge of Leo's bed. He landed on the metal floor with a soft thud. In the quiet room, that tiny sound felt like a lightning bolt. The Gorthak jumped back, its massive claws scraping against the wall, creating sparks. The beast's yellow eyes were fixed on the small cat. To the aliens watching the cameras, Oliver looked like a snack. But to the Gorthak, who saw the world through heat signatures and ancient instincts, Oliver looked like a glowing sun of pure, calm confidence. The cat was not afraid because, in his mind, he was the king of this territory. Oliver began to walk. He did not run, and he did not hide. He walked with a slow, rhythmic pace directly toward the Gorthak. Every time Oliver's soft paws hit the floor, the giant beast took a shaky step backward. The Gorthak's back hit the far wall of the prison cell. It was trapped. The most dangerous predator in the galaxy was cornered by a 10-pound ball of orange fur. The aliens in the control room were whispering now. "Is the cat telepathic?" one asked. "Is it a biological weapon we didn't know about?" They had studied human history, but they had completely ignored the small creatures that humans lived with. They didn't understand the bond between a man and his cat. The suspense reached a breaking point when Oliver stopped just 3 inches away from the Gorthak's massive, spiked front leg. The Gorthak lowered its head, its giant nostrils huffing out hot air that blew Oliver's ginger fur back. Any other creature would have been blown away or crushed instantly. But Oliver simply narrowed his green eyes. He let out a sound, not a hiss, but a sharp, demanding meow. It was the same sound he used when Leo was late with his breakfast. To the human, it was cute. To the Gorthak, it sounded like a royal command from an ancient god. Then, something happened that made the alien commander drop his glass of blue wine. The Gorthak, the beast that had destroyed entire armies, slowly bent its knees. It lowered its massive body until its belly was touching the cold floor. It was an act of total submission. The beast tucked its head down, exposing the softest part of its neck to the cat. It was a sign of surrender that the Gorthak had never shown to any living thing. The death beast was making a low, whimpering noise, like a scared puppy. It was begging the cat for mercy. Oliver seemed satisfied with this. He walked closer and did something even more shocking. He leaned his small head against the Gorthak's leg and began to rub his face against the scales. To a human, this was just a cat being friendly. But the aliens knew the truth about predators. Oliver was marking the beast. He was putting his scent on the Gorthak, telling the entire universe that this giant monster now belonged to him. The Gorthak didn't move an inch. It stayed perfectly still, terrified that if it moved, it might upset the tiny orange king that I in the control room. The commander's face turned from blue to a pale white. He realized that they had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were testing the humans by sending in a monster. But they didn't realize that humans had already tamed the monsters of their own world long ago. As they watched, Oliver finally finished marking the beast and turned around. He walked back to the bed, jumped up, and curled back into a ball near Leo's feet. The Gorthak stayed on the floor, shivering, not daring to get up. The cliffhanger came when the ship's computer suddenly began to beep loudly. A red light flashed across the control room. "Warning," the computer voice screamed. "Energy levels in room 402 are spiking. The human is waking up." The aliens watched the screen as Leo stirred in his sleep. His hand moved, reaching out to pet Oliver's head. The commander realized that if the cat was this powerful, they had no idea what the human would do when he saw a giant monster in his room. The real test was only just beginning, and the aliens were the ones who should be afraid. The atmosphere in room 402 had shifted from a scene of a coming murder to something far more strange. The Gorthak, a creature born in the darkest pits of a volcanic moon, was now lying completely flat on the floor. Its long, spiked tail, which could break a human's ribs with one swipe, was tucked tightly against its body. The beast's breathing had slowed down, but its eyes remained wide, watching Oliver the ginger cat with a look of pure respect. The Gorthak was a predator that lived by one rule: only the strongest survive. In its simple mind, this tiny orange creature that showed zero fear must be the most dangerous thing in the universe. That I in the control room, the alien council was in a state of total panic. The commander was shouting at his scientists, demanding to know if the cat was using some kind of invisible energy field. They scanned the room with every sensor they had. They checked for radiation, for telepathic waves, and for hidden human technology. But the screens showed nothing. According to the machines, Oliver was just a normal, biological cat made of fur, bone, and a very loud purr. This made the aliens even more afraid. If there was no technology involved, then the power of the cat was something natural, something they could not understand or control. While the aliens panicked, Oliver decided he was bored with just standing. He looked at the Gorthak's massive, scaly side. To a human, those scales looked like armor, but to Oliver, they looked like a very large, very warm heater. With a slow and confident walk, the ginger cat approached the beast again. The Gorthak flinched, its heavy muscles tensing up for a second, but it did not move away. It stayed frozen, like a statue. Oliver sniffed the beast's scales one last time, found a comfortable spot near the beast's giant heart, and began to knead his paws against the monster's skin. The aliens watched in silence as the death beast actually began to relax under the cat's touch. The Gorthak let out a sound that was half growl and half sigh. It was a sound of relief. It felt as if a great king had blessed it. Oliver finally turned around 3 times, found the perfect position, and curled up right against the Gorthak's chest. The contrast was incredible, a tiny, soft orange ball of fur resting against a 10-foot, black-scaled monster of destruction. The two were now a single pile of sleeping predators. The death beast had not just been defeated, it had been recruited. It was now the cat's personal bodyguard. The suspense grew as the ship's internal clock chimed. It was the hour when the human prisoners were usually given their morning water. On the bed, Leo began to move. His eyes flickered under his eyelids. The alien council leaned closer to their screens, their hearts, or whatever organs they had, beating fast. They had sent the Gorthak to kill the human, but now the Gorthak was acting like a pet. They wondered what would happen when Leo saw the monster. Would he scream? Would he run? Or was the human even more terrifying than the cat? Leo groaned and reached out his arm, searching for his cat without opening his eyes. His hand felt the empty spot on the bed where Oliver usually slept. He frowned, his eyes slowly opening. The room was dim, but he could see the massive shape on the floor. At first, he thought it was a new piece of furniture the aliens had put in his room. But then, he saw the scales. He saw the giant yellow eyes of the Gorthak looking directly at him. And right in the middle of that nightmare, he saw a familiar orange tail flicking back and forth. The cliffhanger arrived when Leo didn't scream. He didn't jump up in terror. Instead, he rubbed his eyes, looked at the giant monster, and then looked at his cat. A small, tired smile grew on his face. He sat up slowly, looking directly into the eyes of the galaxy's most feared killer. The Gorthak looked at Leo, then looked at the sleeping Oliver, and made a choice. It lowered its head to the floor in front of the human. The alien commander's jaw dropped. He realized that the human wasn't the prey. The human was the master of the master. The silence in room 402 was so thick you could hear the hum of the ship's engines. Leo sat on the edge of his bed, his legs dangling just inches away from the Gorthak's massive, razor-sharp horns. Any other living being in the galaxy would have been paralyzed by fear. The Gorthak was a creature of nightmares, a biological engine of destruction that had never been tamed. But Leo just sat there, rubbing the sleep from his eyes and yawning loudly. He didn't look like a man facing death. He looked like a man who had just woken up on a slow Sunday morning. In the control room, the alien commander was losing his mind. He was punching the buttons on his console, checking the life signs of both the human and the beast. "Is the human's heart rate rising?" he demanded. The science officer shook his head in disbelief. "No, Commander. His heart rate is perfectly normal. In fact, it's dropping. He is relaxed." The council watched the screen in a mix of horror and fascination. They had spent millions of credits and years of research to breed the Gorthak into the perfect killer. And now, a single human was looking at it as if it were a piece of common furniture. Leo finally looked down at the floor. He saw Oliver, his ginger cat, tucked comfortably into the curve of the Gorthak's massive neck. Oliver was purring so loudly that the sound was being picked up by the room's hidden microphones. It was a deep, rhythmic rumble. Leo shook his head and let out a soft laugh. He looked at the Gorthak's giant yellow eyes, which were currently fixed on him with a look of strange curiosity. The beast didn't growl. It didn't show its teeth. It just watched the human, waiting to see what the owner of the orange creature would do. "Oliver," Leo said, his voice calm and steady. "I've told you about this before. You can't just keep bringing every stray you find into the house." The alien commander, hearing the translation through his headset, almost fell out of his chair. A stray? He thought. He called the galaxy's most dangerous predator a stray. The human's lack of fear was more terrifying to the aliens than the Gorthak itself. They began to realize that humans didn't see the universe the way they did. Where the aliens saw monsters and weapons, the humans saw potential friends or, at the very least, something to be managed. Leo reached out his hand. The alien council gasped. Some of them covered their eyes, expecting to see Leo's arm ripped off in a single bite. The Gorthak flinched for a split second, its scales shivering. But as Leo's hand came closer, the beast did something unthinkable. It closed its eyes and leaned its massive, heavy head forward. Leo's palm landed right between the Gorthak's horns. He began to scratch the beast's thick skin, right behind the ears. "You're a big guy, aren't you?" Leo whispered. "A bit ugly, but I bet you're just lonely." The Gorthak let out a sound that shook the very walls of the room. It wasn't a roar of anger. It was a low, vibrating purr that matched the cat's. The monster actually started to wag its heavy, spiked tail, hitting the metal floor with a rhythmic thump, thump, thump. Oliver, the ginger cat, opened one eye, looked at Leo as if to say, "I told you he was okay," and then went back to sleep. The two predators, one tiny and orange, one giant and black, were now completely under the spell of the human's touch. The commander of the council stood up, his face a dark shade of purple. He couldn't take it anymore. This was a direct insult to the power of the Galactic Empire. He grabbed the intercom microphone and his voice boomed through the speakers in room 402. "Human," the commander shouted, his voice trembling with rage. "Do you have any idea what you are doing? That is the Gorthak. It has killed entire armies. It is the shadow of death. Why are you not screaming? Why are you touching it as if it were a common pet?" Leo stopped scratching the Gorthak's head for a second. He looked up at the camera lens hidden in the ceiling. He didn't look angry, he looked bored. He leaned back against the wall, petting Oliver with one hand and keeping the other on the monster's head. "You call him a shadow of death?" Leo asked, his voice echoing in the silent room. "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? On Earth, we have a saying. There is no such thing as a bad dog, only a bad owner. And honestly, your death beast is a lot nicer than most of the cats I've met." The cliffhanger came when the Gorthak, hearing the commander's angry voice, suddenly stood up. It didn't look at Leo. Instead, it turned its massive head toward the camera, its eyes glowing with a new kind of fire. It let out a roar that was so loud it cracked the glass of the observation deck. It wasn't protecting itself anymore. It was protecting Leo and Oliver. The aliens realized with a shock that they had lost control of their weapon. The Gorthak had changed sides. It was no longer a beast of the Empire, it was now a member of the humans' pack. The alien council chamber was in total chaos. Scientists were running around, pulling wires and screaming at computer screens. The commander stood at the edge of the glass, looking down at room 402 with a face full of fear. He had seen many things in his long life, planets burning, stars dying, and wars that lasted 100 years. But he had never seen a Gorthak, a beast designed for nothing but hatred, acting like a loyal guard dog. He realized that the human, Leo, had done something much worse than killing the beast. He had reprogrammed its very soul using nothing but a hand and some kind of strange, quiet confidence. Down in the room, the Gorthak stood tall. It was no longer lying down. It stood right in front of the door, its massive body blocking anyone from coming in. Its tail was no longer tucked between its legs, it was lashing back and forth like a whip of steel. On the bed, Oliver the ginger cat sat like a king. He was washing his face, completely unbothered by the heavy tension in the air. To Oliver, this was just another day. He didn't care about galactic empires or death beasts. He only cared that his human was safe and that his new giant friend was doing a good job of guarding the door. The commander's voice came over the speakers again, but this time it wasn't angry. It was shaking with a desperate need to understand. "Human," he cried out. "What did you do to our weapon? Did you use a biological virus? Did you use secret Earth magic? Speak now, or we will vent the oxygen from your room." Leo didn't look scared. He actually leaned back and crossed his legs. He looked at the camera with a calm smile. He knew that the aliens were terrified because they only understood power through force. They didn't understand the secret history of Earth. "You want to know the secret?" Leo asked, his voice echoing through the ship. "It's simple. On Earth, we were never the strongest. We weren't the biggest. We didn't have scales or long claws. For thousands of years, we were the prey. But we did something that no other species in the galaxy ever thought of. Instead of just fighting the monsters, we started talking to them. We shared our fire with the wolves. We shared our homes with the big cats. We didn't try to break them, we invited them into our pack. We turned our enemies into our family." The council members looked at each other in silence. The idea was completely alien to them. In the galaxy, you either ruled or you served. There was no such thing as family between different species. Leo continued, his voice growing more serious. "You think the Gorthak is a monster because you treated it like one. You kept it in chains. You kept it hungry. You gave it no reason to love. But Oliver here? Oliver is a ginger cat. He has no fear because he has lived his whole life knowing he is loved. When the Gorthak saw Oliver, it didn't see a snack. It saw something it had never seen before, a creature that was completely at peace. Leo stood up and walked over to the Gorthak. He placed a hand on the beast's massive, muscular shoulder. "The secret of Earth isn't magic," Leo said. "It's empathy. We have the power to make anything a part of our pack. And once something is in our pack, we will fight the whole universe to protect it. Right now, this Gorthak doesn't belong to you anymore. He belongs to the pack of the ginger cat. And if you try to hurt him, or me, you'll find out why humans are the most dangerous thing in the stars. We don't just fight with guns, we fight with the loyalty of the monsters we've befriended." The cliffhanger hit when the commander's eyes turned red with fury. He couldn't accept this. If the rest of the galaxy learned that humans could turn their weapons against them, the Empire would fall. "Enough," the commander roared. "If we cannot control the beast, we will destroy it. Security drones, level 10. Enter room 402 and eliminate all biological life forms. Now." The heavy door of the room began to groan as the locks turned. Outside, the sound of 100 heavy battle drones could be heard. The Gorthak let out a roar that shook the entire deck, and Oliver finally stopped washing his face. The little ginger cat stood up, his fur spiking, ready for the final battle. The heavy metal door of room 402 slid open with a violent crash. Outside in the hallway, 50 heavy battle drones hovered in the air. Their red sensors glowed like the eyes of angry insects. Each drone was armed with laser cannons and poison darts. The alien commander had given a clear order: destroy everything inside. The drones moved forward as one unit, their engines making a high-pitched whistling sound. They didn't care about the beauty of the bond between species, they were machines built to delete life. But as they entered the room, they met a wall of muscle and rage that they were not programmed to handle. The Gorthak did not wait for the drones to fire. With a roar that sounded like a mountain collapsing, the beast leaped forward. In the small space of the room, its speed was incredible. It swung its massive claws, smashing 3 drones into pieces of twisted metal in a single second. The lasers fired, hitting the Gorthak's thick scales, but the beast didn't even flinch. It wasn't fighting for its own life anymore, it was fighting for the pack. Behind the beast, Leo stood calmly with his back against the wall. And right at his feet was Oliver. The ginger cat wasn't hiding. He was sitting tall, his ears twitching as he watched the metal birds fly around. To Oliver, this was just a very loud game of catch. The battle was short and brutal. The Gorthak was like a whirlwind of black scales and teeth. It grabbed drones out of the air and crushed them with its jaws. It used its spiked tail to swat them against the walls like flies. The Alien Council watched the screens in horror as their most expensive technology was turned into junk in less than 2 minutes. The last remaining drone tried to aim its laser at Leo, but before it could fire, Oliver suddenly leaped onto a chair and then onto the drone itself. The cat's weight was small, but it was enough to tilt the machine. The Gorthak finished the job, grabbing the tilted drone and ripping its power core out. Silence returned to the room, broken only by the sound of sparking wires and the heavy breathing of the Gorthak. Up in the control room, the commander sat back in his chair, his hands shaking. He looked at his fellow council members. They were all silent. They realized that they had made the biggest mistake in the history of their empire. They had tried to show the humans how weak they were, but instead, they had shown the galaxy how strong the humans could become. They saw Leo walk over to the Gorthak, who was covered in scratches and smoke. Leo didn't look afraid of the monster's blood-stained teeth. He simply patted the beast's side and said, "Good job, big guy. You're part of the family now." The commander realized that the prison ship Zarkos was no longer under his control. If he sent more soldiers, the Gorthak would kill them. If he tried to blow up the room, the other humans on the ship might rebel, led by their own monsters. He sighed and pressed the button for the ship-wide intercom. His voice was no longer loud or angry, it was defeated. "Human Leo," the commander said. "We are opening the docking bay. A small transport ship is waiting for you. Take the Gorthak. Take your cat. Go back to Earth. We want no more part of this. The council had decided that the risk was too high. They didn't want the human pack spreading through their ship any longer. The final shot of the story showed the transport ship leaving the Zarkos and heading toward the blue marble of Earth. Inside the small cabin, Leo was sitting by the window, looking at the stars. Beside him, the Gorthak was curled up in a massive ball, finally sleeping in peace for the first time in its life. And right on top of the Gorthak's head, resting between the two sharp horns that had killed hundreds, was Oliver. The small ginger cat was purring, his eyes closed, dreaming of milk and sunshine. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day: humans are not dangerous because they are killers. They are dangerous because they can turn a killer into a friend. And if you ever see a human with a small ginger cat, stay away, because you are looking at the most powerful team in the universe.